PS are very weird together. I don't know why they do it the way they do things, but
I don't know. Well, it's weird too because it'll like hold the audio like even when it wasn't recording. Cap always makes me like mute for like 20 seconds before he hits start. Especially when we badmouth people.
welcome everyone to Hate on a Four.
That was perfect.
We have a full house tonight. We have Robert, Wild, Torgo, at TheDayGhost, and myself. That might be the best start to any stream we've ever done.
We've set the bar high tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. We missed you, buddy.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad I could be of service.
Tom Atkins is in the chat already. Hey, what's going on, man?
I think you mean Tom Atkins' ass.
Tom Atkins.
We are not doing a review tonight. We haven't done a review in a while, but we'll get back to those eventually, I promise. Tonight we decided to do something a little more fun and a little different than the last couple weeks where we've done lists. We're doing a commentary on one of Austin's favorite movies. Quickly becoming one of mine.
Well, and this is one of the John Carpenter movies that doesn't have Tom Atkins' ass in it. He's in a lot of those movies, but not this one.
Not tonight.
And Austin and I have actually reviewed this movie. I don't know if he remembers, but we did review this.
Because you were like, we're going to do Carpenter month for you. And then I had to like work late several nights, so I missed like the back half of it. I did watch all of them for it.
Yeah. And for everyone who wasn't there, which is everyone but me and Austin, it's because I told him that we did a Friday commentary together, and he was like, we did? And I had to like link him the video, and he was like, oh, okay.
Well, my first thought was, I did an entire commentary on Friday the 13th one. I don't know if I have that much to say about that movie. There's no way.
I'm glad to hear that. And Tom Atkins' ass, and thanks for saying my full name, Austin.
You're welcome, Tom Atkins' ass.
So I believe this was Robert's idea. I don't remember exactly. We were just kind of brainstorming. And this is this and The Shining.
Actually, I think this was my idea.
Oh, what a terrible host. You don't know anything.
Torgo's like, fuck you, this was my idea. No, that's right, because you threw out The Shining. So Austin, I didn't tell you this because we ended up going with the thing, but we were kind of tied between we were split down in the middle between this and The Shining for a commentary this week, and I think we ended up.
Well, they're both like the perfect Christmas movies for 2020, like when everyone was in lockdown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're looking for something.
I've always said that because they're both just like snowy. Like none of them actually have anything Christmassy in them.
I think we narrowed it down to that just because they're both snowy.
Yeah, and then I got Crave like free for 6 months from my phone provider, and they had like a section that was like, I can't believe it's actually a Christmas movie. And I was going through with them, and The Shining was actually on it. I was like, I don't know.
Dude, there are like 50 weird Shining theories. That can be one of them, sure.
It's true, yeah.
Like that movie's about how he faked the moon landing.
St. Nicholas all along.
Sure.
Yeah, so we were looking for something that wasn't necessarily Christmassy because we are very much past the holidays, but you know, the winter aesthetic, and those are the two big ones that I could think of without being a holiday movie. So yeah, does anybody want to say anything before we jump into the movie?
Well, it's also one of my favorite movies. It's John Carpenter's masterpiece. Grossly unappreciated when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to see this in the theater last year.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Oh, okay, so it's even worse than that. So I was at my mom's house, and it was playing right next to my house, which is about 40 minutes away from hers, and one that was like half an hour away from hers, but in the opposite direction. And I was like, that one's technically closer, but I also want to go home, so like, I'll go to the one near my house. And they played this like half-hour long featurette before the movie, and they made like
I
a
hate
little.
it when they do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were kind of checking their watch, but they built like a little The Thing museum with like props and stuff in the theater I didn't go to, and I was like,
Oh, damn.
You chose
oh
poorly.
That would
yeah,
have been cool.
exactly. But the best part about it was I think it was Dean Cundy being like "fuck E.T." in the middle of their featurette.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
I will
it was
agree.
pretty good.
This is one of Carpenter's best. It is not my favorite Carpenter, but I don't remember my list exactly, but it's probably number 2 or number 3 for me. It's just a
It
good
used to be
movie.
my number 2. I think after seeing it in the theater, it's jumped up to number 1. But all that stuff shifts around.
I think it's definitely my number 1 of what I've seen. I think with Halloween being a close second.
Yeah, same here.
I'm
My
in
original
the
one was Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, of course.
It's the greatest movie of all time while you're watching it.
Yeah.
I'm in the camp of In the Mouth of Madness is my favorite Carpenter film.
I still need to see that one.
I just have to watch that again, but I liked it. What I remember, I liked it.
It is pretty sweet.
Tom Atkins asked, the cinematography of this movie is great. I mean, yeah, I'm excited to finally see it in 4K.
Cinematographer is Jack and Jill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Celebrated cinematographer Dean Cundy, who did Jack and Jill.
What a downgrade. All right, everybody get it up to timestamp 0, and then Tom also says Halloween is still my favorite. I like Halloween. It would not be in my top 5.
John doesn't even put Halloween as number 1 in the Halloween ranking.
Which is why you're a fraud. Yeah.
Whoa.
Total fraud.
Yeah, whoa is right.
I stand by what I said. Halloween 2018 is the best Halloween movie.
No.
And I don't care what anyone thinks.
I just find it weird to be like, oh, this movie that mostly relies on this other movie is better than that movie.
It takes what that movie did and does it better. That is the only movie I've seen in that franchise where Michael's really a force of nature.
Anyways, The Thing.
So the thing.
Before we jump into this giant debate.
A movie that totally doesn't build on a pre-existing movie and make it better and do its own thing.
Oh yeah.
All right. Does everybody have it up to time?
Creating that movie.
Does everybody have it up to timestamp 0?
Yes.
All right. In Austin, you know what? You are the countdown guy. Do you want to count us down?
Okay. Everybody press play in 3, 2, 1, now.
Tom Atkins has Haven of Frauds. I stand by what I say.
Which is why you're a haven of frauds.
There's one fraud among us.
Yeah, it's obviously Robert.
Noah, did you just say Among Us?
Oh, that's well, and this is the ultimate Among Us movie. We'll get that joke out of the way.
Or is The Thing the ultimate, or is Among Us the ultimate?
The Thing game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still want a new multiplayer Thing game that's just Among Us, but like 3D in this movie. I totally play that.
Yeah, I'd play the hell out of that.
Something more horror oriented. Like the only thing I've never played Among Us just because it didn't look appealing. If you took that same concept and made it look like this, I would be in.
I mean, I'd also just take another attempt at doing what the PS2 game did, where it was like that. I think was maybe a little too ambitious for what they could technically do at the time.
Yeah.
Something like that. It'd be cool.
Can we talk about how much the Razzies suck for nominating Ennio Morricone's score for worst score that year?
I had no idea that was a thing.
I actually didn't realize that was a thing either. That's awful. But I was just thinking yesterday about how much they suck. But I watched Savage Streets and found out that Linda Blair won Worst Actress for that.
Oh, come on!
Yeah, and the Pet Sematary song won like worst song at the Razzies. Fuck the Razzies.
The Razzies have some They have a history of bad takes.
The funniest was, did you guys hear about? Oh no, it wasn't the Razzies. It was like a film journalist thing, but it was also doing like some worst awards, and one of them was like, like worst age gap between a love couple or whatever, and they nominated Indiana Jones and Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Indy 5, and then had to take it back.
So,
Tom,
so they don't
Like
even watch the
that's
movies.
almost a funny joke.
Yeah.
And if Roger Moore didn't win for A View to a Kill, that category is bullshit.
Tom Adkins asks, have any of you listened to commentary with Carpenter and Russell? If anyone has, it's either Robert or Austin. I have not yet.
Yeah,
I almost did one day because I listened to, I think, their commentary on Escape from New York and Carpenter's one on Halloween, I think. And then I was going to watch this one and then I didn't. But I need to.
I was tempted to because I just bought the 4K yesterday for this commentary. I mean, okay, technically I just use this commentary as like an excuse to finally upgrade to the 4K because I don't know what happened to my Blu-ray, unfortunately. So I was tempted
I've
to
listened to like 8 billion Carpenter not commentaries, interviews at this point too.
I was tempted to watch it with the commentary before this. However, I didn't get around to it. I did watch the movie, but just the regular movie. I didn't watch it with commentary.
This movie looks great in 4K.
I need to upgrade this one.
Good.
I
just rewatched this in October.
It's been a minute since I've rewatched this. I mean, not counting the rewatch I did like half an hour before we got on here.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I'm apparently just having a Carpenter and Russell week. So I also just rewatched Escape from New York like 2 days ago.
Nice. Have you seen his Elvis movie yet?
Oh yeah, I've seen all of Carpenter's filmography.
Oh, cool.
His Elvis movie's pretty good.
So something I appreciate about this movie's opening is it's kind of a perfect setup for what movie this is going to be, because there's kind of a bitter irony to this, right? Like, because you think that the humans are the bad guys trying to kill this like innocent dog, and it's the other way around. And if only they'd been able to warn them.
Well, I think this is just like a regular Norwegian thing of just flying in a helicopter to hunt dogs too. So like if you're also familiar with that, and you're just like, oh, it's just Norwegians.
I just like to imagine Norway has like an army of helicopters in the sky, and every dog is just like hiding under a tree.
It's like fishing for them.
I think we've offended all of our Norwegian viewers.
The anti-Norwegian views expressed by Austin do not reflect the views of Haven of Horror. Just want to let everyone know that. But this movie is beautiful. Look, real locations.
Oh, remember real locations?
What's that? I'm a little ashamed to say I didn't watch this until 4 years ago now for the first time. God, it's been that long.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was the one that was like, how are you a horror fan? You've never seen The Thing.
There was two big horror films that I kind of put off because I was afraid I would dislike them due to their massive reputations. This and The Exorcist. The Exorcist more so because I typically don't like possession movies. But joke was on me because now this is... I would put this probably maybe in my top 5, but definitely my top 10 films.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, for sure. I love this movie. And the voice of the computer here is Adrienne Barbeau, who's in a few Carpenter movies.
Really? Technically the only woman. Sorry, what's that?
No, just technically the only female character in this movie. Obviously, it's just a voice, but there's an all-male cast.
No, I saw an interview. I think it was just like a panel. Like it wasn't technically an interview. I think it was from last year. It was around Halloween Ends. And one of the people that got up to ask a question was like, oh, I saw an interview with Adrienne Barbeau, and she was like, John Carpenter is one of the best directors I ever worked with. And his response was, well, I hope so. We were married.
Are you guys excited for Blumhouse to get their hands on this?
Oh, God.
I mean, we could talk about the potential of a reboot of this movie.
One quick thing about...
Oh, no, go ahead, Robert.
Okay, yeah. Well, that scene was our introduction to MacReady, played by Kurt Russell, and it's great foreshadowing. He's playing chess. he can't win, so he burns the whole thing down. He just it's that computer, but it's good for a movie.
It's also just a great introduction to his character. Like, he shows you exactly the type of person he is.
Great one-liner. I don't even remember
if you ask the original director, he would say this is the beginning of this movie just being a J&B commercial.
Which I always thought was funny when I heard that, and then I think the last time I watched this movie, I kept noticing like that pop up, like those bottles pop up in the movie.
I feel like it's one bottle, like they had one prop and it just keeps showing up.
It's just that one prop.
Tom Atkins says this movie
on Elm Street.
Says this movie is one of my favorites to research. I would like to research more into this. I know kind of the basics, right? Like Carpenter's a big fan of the original. It failed because Hollywood hates us, but
it's because E.T. came out the same weekend. That's why it failed.
Well, and I love another one that I've heard him say multiple times since he's like, all these liberals in Hollywood had this theory that you can't show the monster. We want that far away, but you don't want to have to address the horrors of the world. And he was like, my idea was to show them, and they didn't like that. Which is funny because he also talks about himself a lot as being very liberal. So it's funny that he's like, those libs in Hollywood.
The libs.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, we can agree. I think we talked about this last time we were chatting, that this is one of those movies that became a cult classic. And it's transcended. It's just a classic now, right? Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Everybody loves it. It feels weird to call it a cult classic. It's not small enough for that anymore.
No, it's had that like full turnaround. It's like A Christmas Story, where at some point you could have called that a cult classic, but you can't really anymore.
Yeah, or The Big Lebowski.
Well, I feel like a lot of the old guard cult classics have gotten to the point because they were cult classics to people our age, and now we're older. We're kind of the main generation of moviegoers, so to us they're just classics.
So if you really like a movie and other people don't, just wait for them to die, and then eventually it'll become a classic.
Exactly.
I mean, that's how it usually works.
Yep. I mean, that's why we see, a lot of like the spin around with like the prequels with Star Wars and stuff. Absolutely is how that works.
And I'm in part of that camp that I like the prequels, at least 2 of them.
I mean, I grew up with those movies. I have a complicated relationship with them. But
so, Austin, if I watched the 2011 thing and then watched this right after, would they line up?
I mean, they technically do.
Yeah, I'm sure they probably technically do. I saw that once when it came out, and I haven't seen it since. And I saw it before this one. My dad was like, "Oh man, The Thing is such a great movie. Like, let's rent this," which he also did with Old Boy. So I first saw it was the remake. But we watched it, and because it was my first experience with The Thing, I was like, "Wow, that was like really different and interesting." And my dad was like, "That sucked ass."
Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it would still be a derivative, pointless prequel. But those effects artists were really screwed over on that movie when the studio came in and replaced everything they did with CGI. Like, it at least would have been better if they kept the practical stuff, because the CGI movie sucks.
I'm kind of indifferent to a movie just being kind of a pointless movie. Like, I'll watch it.
Same here.
I think that movie would have been good if the effects were left intact. As it is, like, I'm kind of indifferent. I'm mostly disappointed at the lost potential. But I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's just it kind of exists. But I like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, so like whenever she shows in something, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever think that might be the problem? You're trying to reach shit instead of people?
Yeah, this is one of those movies where, I mean, I don't think you should write off a critic for just disagreeing with you on like one movie or like disliking one movie you don't like. But man, the reviews of this movie had so many bad takes, like just bad, and it's like
it's baffling. Yeah,
how are you? This is a great example of a movie that doesn't give you a lot of backstory or character development for these characters or setup, but they're interesting. They're good, you know.
Well, I think
Like,
I haven't looked too much into what critics were saying at the time because I don't care. Like, obviously they were, it's their opinion, whatever. I think they're wrong. But I think there is an argument to be made that when you're watching something like this, especially if I feel like a lot of critics are sensitive to the kind of gore and stuff that is in this movie, that can really taint your viewing of this movie. So you're going to miss a lot of stuff because you're too distracted by the spectacle. It doesn't make it any less of a bad take. Like, you should do your research before you publish a review. But I can see why reviewers would be kind of put off by some of the stuff in this movie.
Well, a lot of critics were just so dismissive of the performances, which are so good and are half of why this movie works. Like, yeah, you don't know a lot about these people, but you get their vibes. Like, the actors are what brings these personalities to you, where you're like, okay, I get what this character is all about, like McCready or some of the others. On first viewing, there are like a handful of bearded guys who look too similar. They're hard to tell apart, but I've seen this movie so many times that doesn't bother me anymore. But
just watch Dark Star. Dark Star is a movie where everybody looks like
exactly
McCready. But no, I feel like a lot of the side characters in this are written in the same way as like some of the henchmen in RoboCop, where they're not like fully developed characters or anything, but like they have like their quirks that you recognize and you kind of instantly get them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing to keep in mind is, at least for me personally, professional reviewers have never made sense. I think my favorite thing in the world is Roger Ebert giving Hellraiser a bad review, but saying Anaconda was like one of the best movies ever made.
He hated this movie too when it came out.
Yep.
Yeah, I had this really sad experience like 2 months ago where I watched a video. It was like recommended to me on YouTube, and it was like the Siskel and Ebert section for like every Carpenter movie in order, and it was like Halloween. This is great. Everybody go see it. The Fog. This sucks. Escape from New York. Like, this is pretty good. It's okay. This movie sucks. This movie sucks. This movie sucks. And it like gets to a point where like when it starts, it's like, oh, Carpenter made a new movie, and then eventually it's like, yeah, he made another one. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think that at that point it just becomes like a taste thing. Like Siskel and Ebert don't really like the type of movie that Carpenter makes.
When even outside of them, like, there's some like harsh stuff going around. Like, I watched a panel with him from like the mid '90s, I think, and there was like a person that came up to ask a question that like demanded him apologize for making Christine, and it's like,
what,
dude? Like, fuck off.
A disgruntled Stephen King fan.
Yeah.
What's so offensive about Christine in particular?
It's just like, okay. It's just like defeated. It's like in that, it's the beginning of the '90s when like his career was becoming, just working director.
Yeah.
Christine's good.
I don't love Christine, but it's one of the better adaptations of King's work.
It's a better adaptation than The Shining if you're a hardcore Stephen King fan.
It does what the best adaptations of Stephen King do, which is you take the cocaine out and you go, okay, what is actually workable here?
Yeah, but I do feel like it goes too far in some places, but we've talked about that.
But it also completely fixes Christine, like, as a thing. Christine in the book is a fucking mess.
So, this is a very important scene with one of the best dog actors ever.
The dog is so good.
Now, do you guys know who the first person infected is? Because we're like 99% sure who it is, if you know this movie really well.
So every time I watch this, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really pay attention to make sure I know, like, because I know you can like track it as it goes, and then every time I just get so lost in just the movie that I completely forget about it. Like, okay, I need to log this.
So
yeah, see, I was actually going to turn to Austin to see if he knew this because he knows this movie better than I do.
I get too lost in the magic.
Can I explain it for
2
minutes? So the funny thing is, that is not one of the actors. It's kind of a trick question because John Carpenter deliberately brought in Dick Warlock, who played Michael Myers in Halloween 2.
Somebody else that it's not like, oh, I recognize this guy's shadow.
It's to preserve the mystery, though. I mean, if you're going by what the shadow looks like and stuff that happens in the plot later, I'm like 99% that's Norris, the guy who has the heart attack later, and is like, oh god, that's the thing. We'll talk about that scene when we get to it. There are a bunch of reasons just with like plot stuff that happens to think it's Norris who's the first one infected, but a big one is they find those torn up long johns and they're like, who threw these dirty long johns away or whatever. There's a deleted scene that specifies that was a large pair, so it was for a more heavyset person that was killed, and I'm sure Carpenter cut that out to get people to not think about Norris, to not suspect him, because when you're watching this movie, you are not suspecting that guy at all.
McCready is like, well, there's only one fat ass here. Well, there's technically two.
And it's not Blair, because Blair's wearing his long johns that entire movie, so it can't be him.
Yeah.
These long johns don't smell like insulin, so it can only be one person.
They don't smell like diabetes.
Well, and it's interesting because even before I had seen this movie, I had heard like 1,000 theories on the ending. And I think that kind of speaks for the power of this movie, that people are still like debating what the ending is.
Which is why you shouldn't
I've
make
seen
a
so
sequel.
many panels where people are like, Carpenter, like, what's the ending? And it's like, do you not get it?
Get it?
Like,
yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah. No matter what you think happens, like that's a great ending, and there shouldn't be a continuation after that.
No, I agree.
What I'm really worried that Blumhouse will do is the like decades later sequel. We bring back Kurt Russell.
Hey, well, yeah. We'll bring back Kurt Russell. He'll be the bitter, old, angry person.
I mean, that's maybe okay if he's just running around yelling cheat and bitch, but McCready should not be alive moving forward from this.
I mean, to be fair, we brought him back in the game, but that's a little different because that was more of a novelty 20 years ago, and it's a video game, so whatever. Like,
yeah, that kind of fanficky thing I'm more okay with in video games. It's really stupid in that game, but you go, it's a video game. I'm here for fun anyways, like whatever.
And they got Kurt Russell to do the voice, and that's fun, you know.
I think if you... I was thinking about this when we were talking about like a new thing game. With today's technology, like you could really put Kurt Russell in that game.
Do you guys know about the canceled DLC for the Friday the 13th game?
I know about the Jason X one.
Maybe, and I don't remember.
It was gonna be a part 5 thing where everyone starts out as a counselor, but one person has the mask from part 5 and is secretly Jason, but people don't know. So it was going to be more of a Among Us type of DLC, probably even before Among Us came out. I am so really sad. Cool. Yeah,
I'm still so sad. That's my second favorite of this wave of multiplayer horror 80s horror games.
Anything? It's probably my favorite.
I had too much fun with Evil Dead while it lasted.
I did too, but I just like that there's a little bit more variety in how you can win.
You were also really bad at Evil Dead.
That's not true. I also won like every match in Friday the 13th, but
yeah, exactly. Because you were probably good at that game. You were bad at Evil Dead.
I was really good at Evil Dead. Shut your whore mouth.
Have any of you guys seen the 1950s, The Thing from Another World?
Not
I've
yet.
always wanted to, but haven't yet. I actually almost watched it yesterday and then didn't. I should have.
You should have for this.
I probably should have in preparation for this. Yeah.
All I know is that it's like a plant monster that's like very Frankenstein-y and that.
Yeah.
40s and 50s are kind of a blind spot for me that I still need to kind of fill in.
Yeah, same here. I mean, as far as 50s B movies go, like that one's actually like pretty well regarded. Like, oh no, this is a real movie. This wasn't just cheap schlock. Even though it completely abandons the premise from the story, which I find really weird because it's just a monster that kills people. It's not taking over them, which is the whole point of that story. So that's weird and why they called it The Thing from Another World. But it's still pretty well regarded, and you know, there's a few homages to that movie in this one. Like the opening titles is taken right from the 50s one, as you can see in Halloween. It's on the TV in that movie.
Yeah, I think the shot of the one guy on fire where he like bursts through the wall is from that too.
Yeah.
So I think that's the shot they play in Halloween when they're watching it, or one of them. Oh, and we see the shot where they're all like around the ship.
And yeah, this is in that wave of awesome 70s and 80s remakes of 50s B movies. It starts with Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 1978. Then there's this one,
The Blob,
The Fly, The Blob, and Little Shop of Horrors, which is different, but I mean that's still a remake of an old B movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of that
for the
wave.
first time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I still need to watch that. Tom Atkins says, I know James Rolfe prefers the 50s one.
James Rolfe has done a lot with like classic movies where it's like, well, this is the first one, like it is the best one. Not like throwing shade, but like that is like a thing that I've noticed.
It seems like he tends to just prefer that era of like monster movies and B movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a taste thing, which is fine.
Yeah. So I've noticed he does have like a lot of the like, well, this is like the original one. Like, of course, it's the best one. It's like, well, not necessarily, but
I feel like that's a common sentiment, and as I get older, I find myself not agreeing with that.
It depends what it is.
It depends, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with anything, it's case by case. A lot of people, it's a very firm, like, the original is always better. I don't care what comes after. And I had that. I was in that. I had that phase for a while, but it, like, you know, as I get older, I definitely find myself disagreeing with that more. Like, there are still obviously some movies where it's like you can't top the original, even though I like what came after. I can't think of anything in the horror genre right now that it is. But
I think the key for why something like this works is that it's also not just like a remake of that first movie.
Yeah, well,
it's a different movie.
Well, and those, I mean, I haven't seen the originals to compare a lot of those, but I feel like that was the case with all of those 70s and 80s remakes. I still need to see Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Because I've heard those were so successful, maybe not financially, but you know, we all like them. But you know, like the 2010s remakes weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, just comparing, like, using the movie we're watching as an example, this is somebody with a take, you know, and likes the material. Whereas I feel like the 2011 movie, even though I don't completely hate it and I think it has its pros and cons, it's very much like, well, we just want to do what John Carpenter did, but with worse effects.
And all of those remakes were made by filmmakers who loved the originals and grew up on them. And those aren't movies that were like hailed as masterpieces necessarily. I mean, like, they were hits, some more than others. Maybe Invasion of the Body Snatchers was like the most well regarded of the originals. And then when that remake came out, people were like, the original's better, but they're both very good. I wonder if like Psycho was remade in like the early 80s, it probably would have done better potentially. Or
I mean, I guess this would be another hot take for the night. I think you could have remade Psycho. Their problem was that they cast Vince Vaughn and they just remade it shot for shot.
Yeah, for sure. It's just that in the 80s, instead of a remake, we got a sequel that's very good, in my opinion.
I still need to see those.
And by the time we get to the 90s Psycho, that first movie had already turned around and was regarded as a masterpiece and was beloved. Like, it was too late. Like, too much time had passed by the time they actually did a Psycho remake. Where it's like, why are you doing this?
And I think that also speaks for... I think a lot of horror fans will agree 80s was kind of the golden age for horror, because you had so many young and upcoming names and visionary directors. We just don't have that now. Nowadays we have maybe 3 that I can think of off the top of my head.
Flanagan, obviously.
You know, Flanagan, what's that guy's name? The Witch director.
Eggers.
Eggers.
Ari
Aster.
I mean, he's polarizing, but he's one.
He's made one good movie, but Ari Aster. One good horror movie. I haven't seen that last thing he did with Joaquin Phoenix, and I'm not going to. Whether you like him or not, and I lean more on the side of not.
Midsummer that much.
I didn't
saw
like
a short film that he did with my cousin where a dude has sex with his dad, and it was like awesome. So now I'm like, maybe I will watch Beau is Afraid.
I didn't like Midsummer, and that Beau is Not Afraid just didn't look interesting to me, so I'll probably just skip it. But and then
a full length version of that dad movie.
I think
whether you like him or
really?
not, and I tend to fall. So. I tend to fall on the side of not liking him. We have Jordan Peele.
I like Jordan Peele.
Yeah, I like Jordan Peele a lot.
I think that's really it.
I see what you're saying though. Like there aren't many.
Yeah.
Or you'll have like a work for hire director that does like one good horror movie and then is either stuck in that or does something
kind of
else.
Moved more to production companies, I guess. We have like Blumhouse and A24.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah, because I feel like nobody cared what production studio was putting out a movie in the 80s. It was,
True.
This person is putting out a film. And I don't mind that as
nobody was sitting around like, Canon's making a new movie. I gotta go see it.
You stole my joke.
And I don't think I don't see that as necessarily a bad or good thing. But I think it does lead to less visionary directors. Because
these poor dogs. Sorry, go on.
Noah and
I
have talked.
Loves that main dog, but I also think a lot of these dogs' reactions are also really good.
No, I don't think there's a bad dog in this.
Yeah,
I hope there wasn't. I hope there wasn't bad animal cruelty going off screen to get these reactions. I hope they were treated well. But I really like this character, Clark. He's not one who's talked about it much. Like this loner, quiet guy. Clark.
Yeah, the part where he's like crying over his dog's dying is so good.
Yeah, he's just like this loner guy who doesn't talk much. He just likes the dogs more than the people. And of course, everyone suspects him because he's with the dog the whole time. He ends up being one of the more tragic characters in the movie because, understandably, he has like a moment of weakness where he tries to attack Kurt Russell and he gets shot in the face. And he was human the whole time. Like, he's one of the more tragic characters in this movie. Besides the dogs.
Oh no, it's like peeing on him.
So these are some of the greatest effects I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, the first time I watched this, I was like laying in bed watching it, and when the dog's face split open, I sat up and was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I kind of had a.
And then I was telling my dad, I was like, "Oh, I finally watched the original thing," and like I was telling him that exact reaction. He was like, "Yeah, same."
I had a similar reaction.
I was like, "What the fuck?"
And I think it's smart to put that at the start of everything going crazy because a lot of people, I don't know about, back in the 80s, but I have to assume it was a similar reaction. I feel like people react more strongly to animal violence than they do human violence.
Yes.
Yeah.
To quote Bojob, you can kill any dumb person all you want, but you don't kill the pet. That makes people upset. But people suck. And
Stephen King said something similar.
I remember my old drama teacher was like, "There's two things you can't do in a movie. It's kill animals and kill kids. One of those is true. The other is not."
Yeah,
Stephen King did both.
Way stronger to.
John Carpenter did both.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah, John Carpenter did both.
Wait,
he has one of the greatest child death scenes of all time too.
Yeah, it's all on. Mac wants the flamethrower.
Mac wants the what?
I really wish Keith David had worked with Carpenter more.
Why do these researchers have flamethrowers?
I really wish Keith David had worked with Carpenter more because he's so good in both movies that I've seen him in that he works with Carpenter. Robert, have you seen They Live?
That's one I still have not seen. It is on my list.
Oh, They Live is awesome.
They Live has one of the greatest fight scenes of all time.
I'm aware. Yeah. Keith David is one of those awesome character actors who's in so much stuff that when people ask you, "Oh, what's he in?" I'm like,
everything.
It's hard for me to think of stuff because he's in too much.
That's disgusting.
When John Carpenter just loves having the one white guy and one black guy duo in his movies. It like happens a lot with his more actiony things.
Well, or one white guy, one Asian guy.
Yeah,
in big trouble.
That's the subversion.
It's subverting your expectations.
And if that movie came out today, people would be complaining about it online, like, "Oh, why is the white guy an idiot?" In Comic Relief.
I mean, they didn't understand it back then.
Right.
I think the craziest thing with that movie is that Fox had him re-edit the movie to take out all the humor. It's like I can't even imagine. Like, what does that cut look like?
Yeah, I mean, it still works. What we got.
Well, yeah, because they looked at that and they were like,
Whoa.
"Never mind, like put it back." Because the studio, so I have this thing where I'm like, John Carpenter clearly really hates Steven Spielberg, and part of it is that like back in the '70s he called him a studio hack, but also like this movie bombs and then E.T. takes off. And the big thing Fox said when they told him to re-edit that was it needs to be Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, make it into Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I just imagine him sitting there like, fucking Spielberg.
So this is my first time watching this in 4K, and some of those effect shots look even better than like the Blu-ray did.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
incredible.
This isn't one of those 80s movies where you see it in HD, you're like, oh, now I can see all the wires and the imperfections. Like, nah, it just looks better and better.
His eyes.
I have that with Halloween a little bit on the 4K. You can like clearly see Michael's face.
Some of that though on the 4K with Halloween is like things I cheer at. Like when I saw it in the theater, I got very giddy when you see John Carpenter's cigarette smoke blow into frame. It's like, yes.
That's a movie where its imperfections are part of its charm.
Yeah, and exactly.
I mean, John,
totally.
I mean, John, like I know you're not as hot on Halloween as we are, but to me, that's kind of proof that you can have a flawed masterpiece. Because like it's stupid to say like, oh, that movie's perfect. There's no flaws. There are tons of flaws in that movie, but who cares? It's part of its charm. It's still great.
Yeah, the flaws are charming.
It's the thing I've talked to with Cap on Geekolution a lot, which is that like when you're a big fan of things, you can really like look at the issues and the flaws, and you can recognize them, and then either go like, like that's an issue, or laugh along with it if it's part of it.
So I will never say anything bad about Halloween. I think there's some stuff it really does really well. I think the third act is one of the best third acts in like horror history. I just think the first two acts are a bit of a chore. Like that's not a bad thing. It's just for me they're a bit of a chore. I'd still give it like a 4-star on Letterboxd.
So here's Wilford Brimley, best known for Ewoks: The Battle for Endor.
Of course.
Well, we're not super far off from the greatest freak out of all time.
And it really can't be said enough. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, it really can't be spoken about enough how brilliant the idea to set this in like a bunker in Antarctica was. Because I feel like I've seen too many movies nowadays just half-assed explain like why the characters can't call for help or go for help. Where this is like, no, from the very beginning, before anything goes wrong, these people are fucked.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the short story too.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's one thing that plagued 2000s horror movies was, oh crap, we have to like explain Wi-Fi now and why that Wi-Fi isn't working, and that sucks. And it's like, just do more movies in this setting, like that.
Or it's the opposite, where it's like Wi-Fi shouldn't be working right now, but it is. Or you don't know how the internet works. I can tell.
I'm looking at you, Texas Chainsaw 3D. Leatherface's Wi-Fi, I guess.
I love that movie, but it's dumb.
Takes place 20 years after the 70s, aka 2013.
We should do a commentary of that one at some point.
I would love to. I love that movie. It's dumb, but like it's my kind of dumb.
It's a guilty pleasure. I love making
It is
fun of
pretty
it.
funny.
I still say it's the third or fourth best Texas Chainsaw movie.
Sure.
I mean, that's not saying anything.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is that a high bar?
I don't know. I like how many Texas Chainsaw movies are there now?
Like 30.
2, 3, 4, 5.
I mean, I like the first two.
9. I think there's 9 now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's 9 or 10. I can't remember which. We'll go with 9, and I like 4 of them. So that's like almost passing. It's almost halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen the first. Actually, that's not true. I've seen the first 2.
Yeah, don't lie to us. We watched the new one together, Noah.
I barely remember it. It's also a lost commentary.
Yeah.
Oh, that is true. It's fucking John.
Yeah, we watched that movie and didn't even get any content out of it. The movie sucks.
We wasted our time. We watched it for nothing.
No, you know what? It was worth it though. I made Austin sit through it.
The world didn't get to see me freak out about recreating the ending of the original with a Tesla.
We should redo that commentary.
Well, it's not going to be as special now. We know what happens.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
No.
I don't know if that's supposed to be funny or not, but I love it. I got a few laughs in that movie.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people that have that, and I was like, I don't know. It's like Halloween Kills for me, where like I also hear people say it with that, and I'm like, but I don't know. It's just not fun to me. I don't know.
And I do like Halloween Kills, but it's not very good.
And here's Kurt Russell wearing the best hat ever. No context.
Yep. I want that hat.
Yeah, Austin, you should have tried to get that hat for this commentary.
Oh yeah, you guys should also be wearing those masks and goggles.
We should, yeah.
And then Robert, your head should split open midway through this video.
Yeah, Robert, why can't you just split your head open?
I'm trying.
Oh my god, Robert's the Thing?
Yeah.
Don't spoil it, dude.
And then
I found his Long Johns.
And then the cool thing with this as well is we've talked about, doing a thing video game, and it's not exact. But Austin, would you say, because I know you've played some of it, and I don't know if Robert has. I know Torgo hasn't. Would you say that the first Dead Space is the closest we have to a thing video game?
Probably.
Like a proper survival horror. It's not. It doesn't have the shape shifting, but the enclosed space, the monsters.
Well, I think the Flood and Halo also fit that as well.
Is Dead Space the one John Carpenter wanted to make a movie of?
Yes.
Yes.
One of the biggest when you go through, because there's a Wikipedia page of all of his unrealized projects, and it's so tragic.
The one I have that with is Creature from the Black Lagoon. I love the originals, and I want that remake from him. It makes me sad.
For me, it's that his American Godzilla movie. Firestarter. I wish he did as well. He almost did Top Gun at one point. Like he was signed off to do that.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, what does that look like? I don't necessarily want it, but what does that look like?
Hopefully more homoerotic.
Oh god, yeah, except it's with Kurt Russell.
It's just all the whole volleyball scene is the whole movie.
It's all Norwegian dudes.
Oh, and the other big one for me is Sonic, just because I need to know what his Sonic the Hedgehog looks like.
Oh, that would have been great.
My big one is Dead Space. I love Dead Space. Yeah. I think it's one of the greatest survival horror games ever made.
When that page lists them by decade, and you hit the 2010s, and Dead Space is the only actual movie he wants to make, and the other ones are Starman remake, Escape from New York remake, that he would just be a producer on. And it's oh,
don't worry, that Big Trouble in Little China remake is coming, Austin. It's coming.
It's not even a remake anymore.
Yeah.
Is The Rock still attached to that?
I think so.
Yeah, he's gonna be better than Kurt
The
Russell.
Rock leeches on and doesn't leave. He was signed on for Black Adam like 8 years before he made that movie.
Yeah.
I wish he held on to Doc Savage with Shane Black. I would have watched that. That could have been cool.
The Rock has this
That
weird
was
thing
good.
where, like, I think he has the potential to be like a cool action movie guy, but he picks the wrong project like every time.
I mean, I like some of the
But
Fast
also,
and Furious
don't
movies,
make Big
but
Trouble in
not
Little China with The Rock. You don't get it if you're making it with The Rock.
I don't understand remaking movies like The Thing or Big Trouble in Little China. Like, these movies are awesome and they lost money. Why are we remaking movies
because
that
they're
weren't
popular
profitable
now.
to begin with?
Because they're popular
It's
now.
still, it seems like a bad idea.
They should be remaking
Yeah, I
Escape from
said
New
that
York
with,
instead and making it better.
I said that with Blade Runner
What you talking
when
about?
2 bombed. I was like, I mean, the first one bombed.
Yeah. I mean, at
But
least
yeah,
that movie was good.
this scene is like made in editing, if I remember correctly. Like this wasn't something they filmed with principal photography.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's just like they just had this footage of Wilford Brimley, and then they put in this text stuff.
They were just filming Wilford Brimley just looking depressed.
They had 20 hours of that.
He was on the computer ordering more insulin. He was like,
he was Googling diabetes.
Carpenter, I got diabetes. I'll kill you.
He was doing research for his Ewok movie.
He was Googling what the fuck is an Ewok. I actually didn't realize he was in that Ewok movie. That's really funny.
Oh, you should watch that one. It's the one where the family from the first movie is wiped out in the first 10 minutes, and then the little girl's the only survivor and has to team up with Wilford Brimley.
I think I've seen part of that, like the beginning of that movie where the family gets wiped out. Yeah.
What a duo, a little girl and Wilford Brimley.
And Wicket.
And
Warwick
Wicket the
Davis.
Ewok. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And Kurt Russell is just so good in this movie. And has one of the best beards ever. This is making
Kurt
my top
Russell's
10
just great.
beards
Like,
list.
even movies that I don't like that he's in, I like him in that movie.
How can you not love Kurt Russell?
I'm like the ultimate Kurt Russell simp. I love Kurt Russell.
Yeah, that's why. That's why he watched Guardians like 6 times.
Yeah, I wore my I Love Friday shirt. I should have worn my I Love Kurt Russell shirt.
I'm honestly shocked.
Well, all we know, that shirt says "I Jason Kurt Russell." I don't know. We don't know for sure.
I am legitimately surprised Austin doesn't have a Kurt Russell t-shirt.
Yeah, I used to have a Thing shirt, but I don't anymore. I need to get a new one.
No, you just need like a Kurt Russell shirt where it has a picture of Kurt Russell's face.
A picture of his face from Big Trouble in Little China. And then I was like, but I never wear like wife beaters. Like, would I actually wear this? Probably not.
That is another movie that Austin got me to watch, and I was watching and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Then it ended and I was like, you like this, but you don't like anime. Like, what the fuck?
That movie is the greatest. That movie has the greatest F-bomb in a PG-13 film of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it since.
Hollow, fuck it.
I have to rewatch that. I watched it on Netflix like over 10 years ago, and I don't remember a lot about it.
Yeah, I've only seen it once, and it was a few years ago.
And John, you say that, but that movie's like the ultimate basis for Mortal Kombat, and I love Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, because Mortal Kombat is basically an anime in video game form.
Fuck you. Every Mortal Kombat character is in that movie. Yeah,
and Little Trouble or
the main
Big
villain
Trouble
is
in Little
just the Mandarin. And fuck you. Back to this movie, John. Shut up.
God damn it.
That's another great comic book movie Carpenter could have made. Mortal Kombat.
I thought you were gonna say Iron Man because I said that's the Mandarin is the main villain.
My favorite comic book, Mortal Kombat.
So that last scene was pretty important if you're paying attention to the details in this movie. Bennings, the one who's about to get killed by the thing, just asked Windows to get the keys from Gary. And in the next scene, you hear the keys hit the floor. Like, so we know that Windows drops them. And then later in the movie, Gary has the keys and they're asked, which someone uses to sabotage the blood. And they're like, who do you let gives the keys to? And he's like, I don't know. Like, he doesn't remember. Someone look at that as a plot hole. It's like, no, he's just in shock. Like, he doesn't remember. And that's why Windows will freak out later and have like a brief little panic moment because he's like, oh God, he's going to remember that he gave me the keys and then I'm going to be suspect number one. Like, it's just great. Just little details like that you won't catch on first viewing.
Oh, yeah, when he did drop the keys while watching a man get, like, absorbed by tentacle.
So that what you said there kind of brings up a point as well that I wanted to mention is, can we stop saying that everything is a plot hole because we cannot explain it on the first viewing? Like, I am sick and tired of, well, this didn't happen in the movie. That's a plot hole. No, it's not. Just pay attention.
I hate that so much. And also, fuck you. Who cares?
Yeah.
There's lots of movies I like that do have plot holes. I don't care.
Did you enjoy the movie, or were you thinking about that one little?
It ruins it for you.
Did you enjoy the movie, or did you let that one little thing like erode your enjoyment of the movie? If you did, then that's on you. That's not on the movie.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
It means the movie is objectively flawed.
Would you like that an original recipe or extra crispy?
Extra crispy.
Well, Noah does have a boner for the extra crispy kernel, as we all know.
We all know that.
we all know this.
So I really liked the cinematography in that one shot when it cuts to McCready in that room and it's like all blue. But it also makes me think of In the Mouth of Madness because he does a thing with blue in that movie too.
Well, blue is McCready's favorite color, you know.
Did he later wake up on a bus screaming?
He's so blue.
No, he would be happy because it's his favorite color. He'd be like, yes.
Blue.
Whoa.
And this is the scene where Gary's like, I knew Bennings. He was my friend. Like, he's freaking out. Like, of course he's not going to remember how he got the keys back or who he gave them to. Like, these aren't plot holes. There's just information that the movie doesn't give you to keep you guessing. Like, you have to figure stuff out.
It's not spelled out to the backseats.
Exactly. Like, you're supposed to be with the characters. Like, characters not remembering things or changing their minds on things aren't plot holes. Can we all agree on this?
I mean, I think what you're describing is like an issue I have with a lot of like modern filmmaking in that like we over explain things. Like, so I think a lot of the audience goes, well, they didn't explain it. Like, movies are supposed to be told to me.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to understand the movie if the characters didn't have a speech to explain the movie to me?
There's a lot of hand-holding in modern movies.
Yeah, fuck you, Nolan.
Yep. It's the big culprit for it.
I mean, I like Nolan's. Whatever.
I like Nolan up until like 2010.
Oppenheimer is good.
Yeah, I like.
I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet, but
like Dark Knight is a movie that has plot holes, but like I don't care.
Yeah,
like, I love that movie.
That movie rises
Obviously
above its plot holes.
Thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's also a movie where characters explain just the movie to you a lot, but like it's an enjoyable enough movie.
Hey, he's not a hero. He's a silent guardian.
Man, just like the whatever they did for the remaster for the 4K master on this really makes the colors pop.
That's good. Yeah, 4K you have to do your research before upgrading because sometimes they ruin it. Like
T2.
That's the worst one.
True Lies, apparently. That's like the next one that's got
I'm so sad about that.
Apparently it's just James Cameron.
I've been hearing, bad things about Aliens and True Lies, and that makes me sad.
So, Robert, at least
anything about Aliens.
I've heard that The Abyss looks really good.
At least with me, I tend to make the rule that 95% of the 4Ks I buy, I will only buy if they're from like Screen Factory or Arrow, because they have a reputation of quality output. Obviously, there's exceptions because they don't put out everything, but for classic films, that's typically who I go to.
Criterion is for me as well.
I have a few Criterions, but they don't typically dabble in the genres that I'm overly interested in. So I don't have that many. Enough. I have the David Lynch ones.
They did release Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which is the greatest film of all time.
I still have to see that to see why you keep calling it the greatest film of all time.
Because it's the greatest film of all time.
So written by Roger Ebert.
So you're saying it's better than Evil Dead 2?
Oh, here we are at the greatest.
Probably not, but
I love this freak out.
It's like Big Trouble in Little China, but when you're watching it, it is. But after the fact, you're like, okay, yeah, probably not. But when you're watching a woman get fucked while she screams Bentley over and over again, you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
So I know he's obviously freaking out about the creature, but does he have a goal here with smashing all this stuff, or is he just like?
Yeah, he's destroying everything that they can like contact the outside world or get away with.
Yeah.
So he's more just he's kind of ahead of the curve.
Yes, because
he's not a monster. He's just ahead of the curve.
No, everything he's doing is correct, but he's also having like diabetic rage, so it's like coming out in just the wrong way.
Well, if you want to see him having a get ready, suit up weapons montage, watch Ewoks: The Battle for Endor, because he gets one.
I also Robert keeps spilling this
Joel Schumacher suit up. It's like really close.
I love that Robert has brought up this Ewok movie like 6 times tonight.
Are we gonna have to do a commentary on the Ewok
line in this?
It's his most famous movie.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I like that he's taking them all on and winning.
Because he has diabetic strength, John. I also love just how loud that sound effect they put in for when Kurt Russell punches him.
Oh, it's so cheesy.
It's so loud, like he hit him so hard. He hit him like Ivan Drago. So good.
And Palmer, the one guy who likes to smoke weed and listens to music sometimes, I'm pretty sure he's turned by this point and is probably sabotaging the blood during this scene because he's one of the characters that isn't present during Blair's freak out.
Yeah, probably.
Because it's one of those movies where there's not like an airtight step-by-step explanation for things, because that's not really what John Carpenter cares about. So you don't get all of those details, but like he's not lazy either. Like there are details that are there for a reason. And he gives you just enough to keep you on edge.
Yeah. No, I mean most of his filmography, like you can like pick holes into them, but like for what they are and what he's doing, they are very tight.
Mm-hmm. And Kurt Russell's hair is magnificent.
Oh, 100%.
This is probably his best look in any movie.
I agree.
Yeah, it's yeah, probably.
It's like the most iconic Kurt Russell look.
Well, I was like, it's either between this or, and then I just like in my head started listing like every Kurt Russell movie I like.
I mean, he still rocks a beard in Guardians 2.
Yeah, yep. I was gonna say Guardians 2 is probably the closest.
No, Kurt Russell is a sexy bitch.
Yeah, and I really like I don't remember if there's anything actually in the movie that tells you this, but they've talked about how McCready was like a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, so that's why he's kind of a bitter loner guy. And I don't remember if there's anything in the movie that tells you that, but like if you know it's there, or you can at least like infer it or get his vibe, like you just get what this character's about, and then you hear that and you're like, oh, that makes sense. That tracks for this character.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it makes me want to like fuck the Norwegian camp is a prequel. Give me McCready in Vietnam. There's it's a thing. It's just
and Rambo's in
a
it.
Vietnam movie.
Yeah, there we go. Rambo and McCready together at last.
Hey McCready, you got the flamethrower.
Yeah, fuck you too.
yeah, fuck you too, Rambo.
I could believe that First Blood takes place in this universe.
Oh, 100%.
First Blood, but none of the sequels.
It's the first one.
Yeah.
And it's the original ending where he dies.
Sure.
You gotta have the dark ending. This is the dark universe.
I finally watched the first Rambo movie a little while ago with Austin. It was not what I was expecting.
I really like that.
Because everybody thinks that Rambo 2 is what Rambo is.
Yeah. And when I finally watched Rambo 2, I was like, this is not a good sequel to that movie.
It's not, but it's also awesome.
Yeah.
And then the third one is problematic.
I never saw
that's the one I haven't seen is 3. But Rambo 2 is like Commando, where you're like, this is awesome. It's so stupid.
Yeah. Well, and I love Commando because it's like
Cameron.
Yeah, it is written by James Cameron. I do like Commando because it stands alone and it's not connected to a more serious movie.
And I also thought the first Rambo was just okay, so I might like the sequels more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then 4 is really great.
And then 5 I've heard is not.
5 I thought was like okay, but like the first like 2 acts maybe are kind of rough.
I do remember when that one came out. That was one of those movies where like, oh, the ending's just Home Alone but gory, and I'm like, you're selling me on it. That sounds awesome. Why is that a criticism?
That movie was also weird because like half the criticism was like the reverse Ghostbusters 2016, where it was like
it's weird.
Yeah, I sat through that movie next to like a 6-year-old in pajamas cuddling with a stuffed animal, and it was super awkward.
Wow.
There's a part where like Rambo like cuts out a man's heart and like waves around like a decapitated head while driving a truck. There's like this little kid like.
I had that with Eli Roth Thanksgiving. Like that whole theater was just families and kids. And then
weird. I finally just saw that like 2 weeks ago.
I was like, do they think this is a family movie? But nobody left. They seem to enjoy it.
It's a family picture.
It was really weird.
No, when I saw Deadpool 2, there was like a little toddler there, and he seemed fine.
It's a family picture.
Those kids with Thanksgiving would have been like really messed up if it had the Thanksgiving from the trailer. If that was in the movie, that would have fucked them up.
Yeah. So we just talked over Windows' brief little panic mode. Where is he going to get guns? What's he gonna do? I don't know. It's just a little believable panic moment. But if you're paying attention, he's the last one before Gary who had the keys, and he's thinking, "Oh crap! If Gary remembers that, I'm target number 1. So I gotta freak out." And the movie doesn't spoon feed you that. You can just pick up on it.
Yeah, I love that he just has like this breaking moment where he's like, "Shit, I need to get a gun to protect myself." And like the second he gets there, like everybody's already on him. It's so good.
Yeah, and this is also a scene where Norris, they're like, "Oh, maybe you should be the leader," and he's like, "No, thanks, I'm good." Like that's because he's the Thing, and he's trying to be low key. He's not trying to, be noticed or talked about. Because on first viewing, you would never suspect that guy.
He should have become the leader and been like, we should all leave.
Exactly. We should totes bounce out of here.
We should go to the mainland. Let's go.
6 hours. Find out who's who. That dog. Clark, you over there.
Have you guys ever seen, I think it's like a fanfic or something, like somebody made a version of the story from the Thing's perspective
I was gonna read that, but I didn't get around to it. I've heard it's good.
where it's like, if I remember correctly, it's like the Thing just wants to go home or something, like the Thing's like a good guy and these people are all just like killing him.
Yeah, it's called Things, and I assume you're referencing this because the Red Letter Media video.
That was where I first heard about it, yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds really interesting because he's like, what the hell? Because when he becomes a human, it's like, what the hell? It's cold. Why are these things here where it's cold? This doesn't make sense. Why are these stupid humans in this place that they shouldn't be? Like, it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I like movies like this, where if you look at it from the monster's point of view, it's like, it's just trying to survive. It's not trying to be evil.
Yeah, I mean the Thing is like basically the same as Starman, like the shapeshifter. And then
I
you
would
get like that diabetic saucer that he's building at the end that looks way too small for Wilford Brimley to fit in. It also looks like it's made out of like really cheap plastic.
I like this scene because it really just shows like how at the end of the rope they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say.
So this is where they had the deleted, like they were large long johns. Then I'm guessing.
No, I think that was before this because I think this is a second pair they're talking about, which means this is probably Palmer's.
Oh yeah.
Because they found a
No
second. No, what you were talking about was Starman. I thought you were gonna say like, oh, but it's the Thing, except the Thing bangs Karen Allen and they have a baby.
I mean, you know,
I watched that movie.
I
need to see
really want to
Starman.
see a movie where the head crab fucks Karen Allen.
I've heard that movie's good.
Oh, Starman's great. But all I can imagine now is like they're having sex and she puts her hands on his chest and they open up. Down on her arm.
That movie's coming to 4K too soon.
Oh,
is
sweet.
it?
Yeah.
That was
who's
a
doing
movie
that?
I had no idea what to expect from, and it's really good.
Noah, do you know who's putting that out?
It's not a independent label or anything. I think it's just Sony. It's going to be part of their like Sony Pictures classic line.
Sony typically does pretty good with their like remasters.
Mm-hmm.
Ghostbusters, it looks great.
Sony was like, hey, John, James Cameron's remastering all of his movies. Do you want to be involved with this? And he's like, fuck you, I'm playing video games, give me my money.
For a second there, I thought you were talking to me.
No.
Now, do you guys know about the deleted scene with this character?
No, I don't think I've seen any deleted scenes from this movie.
What's his name? I think this guy's Fuchs. So his death is off screen, and it's really weird. I always forget what happens to him. It's implied that like he burned himself alive, which is really messed up, to stop himself from being the Thing. But there's a deleted scene that's never been released, but I think there's photos of it where originally they found his corpse, but like with a pipe or a shovel in him, like the Thing murdered him. And they're like, that's too much like a normal slasher movie. And then it's like, well, why did it just kill him instead of assimilating him? So they were thinking about that, like, no, let's. But I mean, they couldn't reshoot like anything that elaborate, so that's why he has like a weird off-screen death. It's still effective. It's just like, oh yeah, he burned himself alive off screen. That's kind of weird. Like to stop himself
from. You don't see it just because like you see it and it's like, oh shit. Because I feel like if you saw it, it would be too much like that Jaws 2 scene where the woman lights herself on fire, where like it would maybe be a little too silly, like watching it.
Yeah.
That scene is amazing, actually.
In Jaws 2, that is the best
greatest
scene
thing
in
that movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
that movie's also boring as fuck.
That movie's kind of sucks.
The movie's awful.
That movie's boring. Okay, I think that movie's all right. I don't mind it. It's pretty dull in places, but I think there's good stuff in it.
Yeah, like the
No,
woman
that
setting
movie
herself
is-
on fire.
That's one of those movies where I think it's super boring, and then like will pick up, but when it picks up, it's like the greatest thing you've ever seen. You're like, oh man, why
Yeah.
can't the rest of the movie be like this?
There's good stuff with Brody's character in that movie that I like. I think it's okay. Jaws 3 is hilariously
There's this
bad,
visual gag.
Yeah,
but
I think 3 and 4 both are.
yeah. Well, what sucks about the third one is that could have been a good movie because that's a good premise. It just sucks, but it's
Yeah.
funny. So, but Jaws and SeaWorld, I mean, that's awesome.
No, Jaws 3
wish
is
the
pretty
effects were
fun.
Mhm.
And then Jaws
The
4
effects
has
are
our
just
boy
terrible.
Yeah, our
Jaws-
boy, Hoagie.
Hoagie. Yeah.
We watched Robert. We watched all 4 Jaws films in one night,
Oh, nice.
and it
Okay.
was we loved Hoagie.
Who says this movie doesn't have comedy? Stupid critics, because Wilford Brimley with a noose in front of him is
Yeah,
the funniest
That's a
thing.
dark joke,
ever
and it's
put.
awesome.
It's a great visual gag.
I'm all right. I'm all better.
I want to come back in. Forces the thing on.
And what's so
Please,
messed up?
I need insulin.
What's so messed up about it is my read on this scene is at some point like he was aware that he was turning and was like considering suicide, but then the thing overcame him too much, and now he's like, now I'm all better. Now I'm gonna start building my spaceship. That's how I read the scene,
That makes
which
a
is
lot of
really
sense.
dark and sad.
Interesting. My read of it has always been he's still normal at this point, but that wouldn't be shocking.
See, I think I tend to lean more on Robert on this because the way he delivers the like I want to come back inside, it's not something's off about it, but like not a bad acting, just like a purposeful choice to make it different, and like he's really
I've always just seen
insistent.
you can read it either way, and I think that is really cool. I've always just seen it as like he had his meltdown, and he's like, okay, like I've come to, like I'm all right now, and like it makes it sadder to me if he's like if he's still okay here, and we could have let him out, and then he's gonna become the thing later.
I said I'm all right.
I would agree with Austin, except it just makes the spaceship thing make even less sense because that would mean he was putting that together in like less than a day. I mean, that's already the silliest part of this movie, but I have to think he was turned for at least a few days working on that thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's the silliest part of this movie. And okay, I mean, realistically, if the thing can just touch you and put a part of itself in you, and then you're turned, like there should be no movie. Like these people should all be screwed from the start. But it's at least theorized by Blair earlier that like it can do that, and we know with Blair that has to be how he turned because he's wearing the same wardrobe like the whole movie. So he wasn't killed and ripped apart. Like he was slowly turned and infected at some point off screen. So his theory is kind of proved true since we see him as the thing later, but he's wearing the same clothes. Like that's deliberate.
Yeah. And I mean, for all we know, McCready and Childs could become the thing.
They could. Now it's a zombie movie for 5 seconds where everybody's boarding it up.
Because like every John Carpenter movie is a zombie movie for at least some point.
I would love to have seen what his actual zombie movie looked like.
Right.
I'm also kind of glad he didn't, because it's like it's so just like in most of his filmography. Like I don't know if I need just like a full one.
Yeah, but I also like zombie movies more than you.
That is true. I'm excited to play that Toxic Commando game.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
And this is where they try to frame McCready. And freaking Null's here. It's like, this means it's McCready. This is not a setup.
He's the imposter, guys. I swear.
He's acting sus.
I saw he
You-
vented. I saw it.
You liar.
Liar.
So, do any of you guys play Among Us?
No, I've never played it.
Yeah,
I just
I
know
want to
the
play it.
names.
It
I
just
don't know,
doesn't
like,
look.
I think it would be fun for like a stream or something, like to do it like with like a group of people.
Yeah, I
John,
need
set
people.
that up.
Austin,
Yeah,
set that
John.
up.
Well, you're the one with a. Fuck you, John. Just do it.
You don't get a say in this.
Yeah, I've already made up my mind, John.
We're doing the Thing Among Us stream.
Exactly.
Austin and I will do the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League stream.
No, it's Among Us
favorite
right
horror game.
now. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hold a flare up dynamite and be like, "Fuck all of you."
I love just
We're
how
playing
done
Among
Kurt
Us.
Russell is at this point. He's just like, fuck you.
Oh, he does such a good job of like portraying like how cold he is, like especially when you get into that next scene and he's sitting there like,
Yeah.
I mean, some of this isn't acting. It's really that cold.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tom
I remember
Atkins
watching
ass
this with my
says,
sister, and she's like, it's clearly not cold," and I'm like, "No, they filmed it like in a cold
Yeah.
spot."
I mean, if you're gonna nitpick this movie, you can tell usually when they're on a set or when they're in the location, just if you can see their breath or not.
Yeah,
But if you can see their breath, they're really there, and it's freaking cold.
Well,
Tom
later on, when
Atkins
they're
says
blowing up the
Austin is
set, like,
sus. He's definitely the Thing.
He is Canadian.
maybe.
Yeah.
We
He
already
should have been
established that
Belgian.
Robert is the Thing.
Well, but it changes, remember? So now Austin is the Thing. He's awfully
Or
sus.
did I say that Robert was the thing because I wanted everybody looking at him?
Exactly.
No, I like
Man,
just how
later on when they're
miserable
burning
he
down the sets,
looks.
like that was also real.
Oh,
I forget. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
One thing that Kurt Russell talks about is that I would have never thought about is that flare is like melting his hands. Like I just assumed, oh, flares, they're safe. Like, no, they're like burning your eyes and like dripping stuff on your hands. Like, it's a really painful scene for him to shoot. And like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just know how movie flares work.
And then they cut, and then John Carpenter was like, "Get him another flare. We need to refilm this."
If it
Now,
was
this
Stanley
is-
Kubrick, he would have to do it like 100 times.
Yeah, 30 more times.
Yeah.
Please,
Now they would
Stanley,
use
I don't have any
clickbait.
hand left. Do it again.
Now, in my opinion, this is the greatest jump scare in movie history. It is so good.
I think the one after this is better.
I was gonna say, there's
I
another one in this movie that's also great.
Really,
I will
when
say
that
this is
chest
the
opens,
greatest.
it's so good.
It is, but you're forgetting the blood test.
That's good. I don't consider that as much of a. I mean, it is a jump scare. That's also.
I
great
don't
for sure,
consider
but
this
I
a
love
jump
this.
scare. Actually, it is a jump scare.
Yeah,
No, this is great.
the best like effects in the movie, in my opinion.
Do you guys remember when It Chapter 2 like suddenly turned into the Thing for a minute?
Don't remind me.
Yeah, I don't like to think about it chapter 2 that often.
I love.
Yeah, the worst part about this is like there's like the green like noodles,
Yeah.
and there's like the bubbles popping
like
of like yellow
bubbling.
buzz. Yeah.
And this is like the best fake head I have ever seen in a movie. Like it's just screaming
Oh,
and
good.
ripping off. I don't know how they did that. It's so expressive and articulated. I'm like, how did they do this without CG? It looks freaking incredible. I love it so much.
No, absolutely.
The only bummer with this scene for me is that Palmer is about to have the best line in this movie when he says, "You've got to be fucking kidding me."
Yeah.
That line is so good and then kind of ruined when you know that he's the Thing at that point. Or made better depending on your point of view. But
I think it makes it better.
it's weird. It's weird
He's
that
trying
he
to
would
show that
say
he's
that.
not sus.
Right. That would make sense. I just think it's weird that he would like draw everyone else's attention to the little head on the ground, but it's still a great line. And your point is sound.
That's
that
true.
like, you know, he's playing 4D chess, man.
He's like, wow, that one's already fucked anyways. That's not getting away. It's a little head spider. It's not going anywhere.
And then it just stands perfectly still, waiting to get blasted.
Yeah.
Like, hello.
They could have cut that shot down by like a second.
Well, my favorite part is that it's standing perfectly still, and then when he blasts it, it just kind of goes like.
Have you guys seen the edited clip of that where he's like, "You got to be fucking kidding me," and then it cuts and it's the imposter from Among Us?
No.
Good.
Of course, that's a thing.
It's really funny.
It's very funny.
Wait a minute. Let's see what Max says.
Oh, there's an Atari in the background.
Then I'll have to kill your child.
They blew half their budget on the Atari product placement.
This movie's just a commercial for J&B and Atari.
And then Atari tanked like a year later.
They should have made a the Thing Atari game.
Hell yeah.
There's like 8 lines, and one of them might be the Thing. You have to figure out which one is the Thing.
One of them is like a mass of 8 lines. That's supposed to be the thing when it's like.
Well, yeah, that's like once
Yeah.
a line, like you figure out it's the thing, it like grows into a really big line, and then you have to
Yeah.
shoot little squares at it.
It'll be a big square with lines coming out of it.
It'll have like really like Atari-ized like.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I just feel so bad for Clark. He was human, and he's dead. I
Clark!
get why.
Watching Norris and that.
Yeah, he saw all of his dogs die, and then McCready shot him in the brain. Keith David just really does not want to be there.
So we were talking earlier about how like some movies are kind of ruined by transfer to 4K. It's not ruined, but this is the one scene in this movie where the higher resolution messes with it because you can tell when it switches to a fake hand.
Yeah,
But it's a fake hand through like the whole scene, which makes it work better.
right. And it's something for years I never noticed. Like on multiple viewings, I was like, how do they do that shot? Like I never noticed it was a fake hand until like I watched a video that pointed it out.
Oh, you know what, Austin, you're right. I had it the other way around. For some reason, I thought they switched to the fake hand like a couple of ones before.
No, that's why it's like one of the best jump
scares.
scares is because they used the prop hand for all of them. So there's never that moment where you're like, oh, his hand became fake.
Because the scene's so good and you should be looking at Kurt Russell's face, like I still doubt anyone would notice that on their first viewing. I mean, maybe someone would, but I'd be shocked if that like actually ruined that scene for that.
I think even if you're like, oh, like his hand looks weird, when nothing happens right away, like I feel like you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'm wrong.
You still
Mad
wouldn't be
Kid says
expecting a
now I'm
jump
gonna
scare.
notice it.
Oh yeah.
Movie ruined 0 out of 10.
I think when I just first was watching this movie the first couple times, I think I had probably just thought like, oh, there's probably something in his hand and they're like pulling it with a string or something. Like I never thought to look at the hand like, oh, that's a fake
Or like
hand.
you
That's how
angle
they
it
did
in a certain way, so like it's actually like here.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, yeah. I mean, this is some of the best effects of all time.
And we just got a close up on Palmer's face, where you don't see the light in his eyes, which is like his subtle clue that he's
Put that on.
the thing from Dean Cundy. But that's only in this scene. don't use that for your stupid theories on the ending. That is not consistent throughout the film. It is this very specific scene. And there's a shot earlier where we see Palmer, like where we're panning through the characters, where you see the light reflecting in his eyes. It's just one close up where his eyes are dark, and he looks
There's
kind of
also that
ominous.
whole thing. It's also that whole thing where people are like, "Oh, but you can't see their breaths at the end." So, or like one of their maybe child's, and it's like, yes, you can. Like, what
Yes,
the
you
fuck are you
can.
talking about?
Are you watching it on VHS? Like,
Yeah.
you can see it.
I mean, I do enjoy like hearing the different theories, but at the end of the day, I don't think there is an answer. Like,
Right.
it's
and
written
that's
that
the
way on
point.
purpose.
And either way, they're all dead.
Yeah, no matter what you think about it, they're gonna die.
Unless
Except
you
for
read the
Kurt
comics.
Russell, because Kurt Russell can never die,
Correct.
even in real life. Let me have this.
He's too busy being in Godzilla movie or shows.
Exactly.
Have you started that yet, Austin?
I've seen the first 3 episodes, and then I was like, I'm gonna wait for this all to finish. But I was really enjoying it.
Okay, cool.
I had this. I had the exact same thing, mostly because I kind of forgot about it.
And Kurt Russell shows up in the 3rd episode, and he's awesome.
No, I was really liking that show. I just need to go back and finish it. Oh, that's so gross.
So good. Now that
It's
shot,
disgusting.
that shot of the blood moving on the ground is awesome. But you should also be like, oh, they're all.
Yeah, yeah, true.
This is pointless.
I love how he just stands there.
But I love that it eats his head, and like it's just like flailing around. Greedy's like, "Fuck, get this working."
Poor Windows, man. You didn't deserve
That
this.
flamethrower working.
And Windows looks like Hyde from that 70s show, and I find that distracting.
I was
I
gonna
had
mention
that
that
same
earlier,
thought.
and it didn't. Yeah,
That's
It's, like,
unfortunate.
drenched in blood. It's so good.
And there's a really goofy dummy shot with his legs flailing.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Then every time I see this, when he breaks through the wall when he's on fire, I'm like, "Fuck! It's gonna be so cold in there now."
Yeah.
That fire stunt looked awesome.
That's so good.
I mean, he gained like 100 pounds between scenes, but that's fine.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
It's like that really long fire shot in Nightmare on Elm Street where Freddy's suddenly like 300 pounds.
I think the only 2 80s movies, at least just off the top of my head, that come close to this in terms of special effects, like gore especially, would be Day of the Dead and The Fly.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah,
I mean, I
Fly's
think
a good example.
I mean, American Werewolf in London doesn't really have gore, but it has the best werewolf transformation ever.
Yeah, but the thing with American Werewolf in London, which is a great movie, which we definitely need to cover at some point, is it's really just that one scene. Whereas, like something like Day of the Dead or The Fly,
he's one of the best transformation scenes.
Right, but I'm just saying where something like
John,
shut the fuck up. Whereas like something like Day of the Dead or
Shop
the
of Horrors also was like the greatest.
God damn it, Austin!
Oh my god, Audrey 2 looks great.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, we should have talked about it earlier, but Rob Bottin, like you don't hear about him a lot because his effects in this movie are amazing. He also did RoboCop in Total Recall, which also have some of the best effects ever.
Yeah,
but he also did the werewolf effects in The Howling, which are good but not his best work, and came out the same year as American Werewolf in London. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
but at least The Howling 2 came in and then was the greatest film ever made.
Agreed.
The werewolf.
Wait. So Austin, how many greatest films have ever made are you at now?
I don't know.
Like,
a lot of them.
It goes Big Trouble Little China, Evil Dead 2, Howling 2. That's
I mean,
the only thing wrong
with that list is there's nothing better than Evil Dead 2.
Except for The Howling 2 and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
You shut your whore mouth.
Could we do a commentary on The Howling too?
We should.
Yes.
So, the one fan theory with Childs that kind of tracks that he might be the thing, but I'm not sure if it's deliberate or it's just a continuity error, is this is like one of the last times we see him before the ending, and he's next to a blue coat that looks very similar. And then in the next shot where we see that room where he's gone, that coat is gone too. So the theory is the thing killed him, ripped up his clothes, and then like got the blue coat that's right next to him to disguise himself, which is a sound theory. But then there's a later shot in the movie near the very end where you briefly see that room and the coats are rearranged differently. So I don't know if that's deliberate or misdirection or if it's just a continuity error. I can't be sure on that one. But the Child's thing is weird, but it's the only theory that, in my opinion, like holds any water.
The explanation for it might be in that feature I saw when I saw it in the theater, where I forget who it was, might have been Dean Cundy and somebody else, talked about how they were burning down the set, and somebody was like, "Oh shit, there's all these coats. We should like take them and keep them." So like they were like moving stuff around.
Yeah, so that's probably it. I didn't know that story.
Yeah, it was really funny because I was like, "Oh shit, they like actually burned their sets down."
Yeah,
that's awesome. I just assumed that was, movie magic.
They couldn't afford movie magic. They had to build and destroy everything they made for this.
But steal the coats.
We're broke. We need these coats. Now this is the goofiest scene in the movie with this very cheesy UFO.
This is where all the
budget went to.
I just want to say how I appreciate that he's still carrying around that thing of dynamite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it might not be the same one because he blew up the one guy.
With this spaceship, I just imagine it flying through space with Wilford Brimley like sitting in the top, like his head poking out of the top,
and he's just like.
So this bit of the score right here, where it's like
flying around and he's like, "My diabetes is blocking
it's
my
very,
Venus."
It's very Goblin-esque for like Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, it's cool. This is a pretty unique score for Morricone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I won a Razzie for worst score.
It's too repetitive.
Makes no fucking sense.
It's too repetitive and subtle. You can't dance to this. The score sucks. Now, I will say, though, as awesome but repetitive as the score is, I mean, they did cut a lot of it out. Like, there's a lot of unused music for this movie. I don't know if Morricone was happy or upset about that. I don't know. But they did, him and Tarantino recycled some of it, at least one track for The Hateful Eight, which is great because the score in that movie is so good. So it uses some of the...
There's so much of the thing in Hateful Eight.
Yeah, so they used a track from that, and they also used a track that's in Exorcist 2 that Morricone did, because he was probably he was probably like, screw it, that movie sucks. I want that music and something that's good.
That's still never seen
the greatest film. That's the greatest film of all time, though. The Exorcist 2.
Well, we're gonna do a commentary on it eventually.
You and Austin can do that together. I won't be here.
No, John, you have to. That's gonna be how you watch the movie. It'll be a blind commentary for you.
It's not the worst Exorcist sequel.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. Now that a Believer exists.
No, we'll do a Believer commentary and make it a blind commentary for Austin.
Oh God, you can't make me.
No. See, Exorcist 2 is just gonna be more fun to watch. So let's just do that.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, but hear me out. Austin's suffering is really funny.
That's true.
But with the score thing. I love. I've seen like in a few interviews with John Carpenter where he talks about the score because they're like, "Why didn't you do the score for the thing? Like, why is that one of the only ones you didn't?" and he's just like, it was like my biggest budgeted movie. I could finally afford a composer.
That's an awesome answer.
That's great.
And the theme is great. Like, it's so good and creepy.
Yeah.
No, I
I'd be
like the score
interested-
quite a bit.
I'd be interested to see a version of this movie with Carpenter doing the score, but I mean,
But didn't Carpenter make the actual like dun dun theme?
oh, I have no idea.
I mean, it's very Carpenter, so like I could believe.
Yeah, it would probably be pretty similar.
But the score is also pretty timeless for his movies because it's not as like synth based as a lot of his stuff, which is cool. I love his scores, but this doesn't like feel as 80s as some other
Right.
movies. Like this is one of those like very timeless 80s horror movies.
Mhm.
And I mean, you
Absolutely.
got one of the best composers in the business to do the score, so that's good.
And this is a movie where if I didn't have context for like the actors or whatever, like you could have told me this was made in 75 or 95. Like I would immediately guess 80s. Like it just has that timeless quality to it, except for the Atari machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say more 70s or 80s. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I could probably see this as like an outlier in the 90s.
Yeah, in the 80s it feels like kind of an outlier to me.
Yeah. This in the 90s would be Event Horizon.
Right.
Directed by Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah, Paul Wes Anderson.
Paul, yeah. The best
Dude,
Paul Anderson.
It was growing up, I had so much difficult keeping track of those different directors. I was like, okay, there's Wes Anderson, there's Paul W.S. Anderson, there's Paul Thomas. Which Anderson is which? And then there's Wes Craven. Is it Wes Craven or Wes Anderson? I'm confused.
That was me with David Lynch, David Finch, and David Fincher. The only one we're missing is a David Lyncher.
Oh no!
Whoa!
Whoa.
That's called Birth of a Nation, Austin.
Yeah, Noah's favorite movie.
Oh god.
Tom Atkins says, and the bell bottoms. I don't know what he was responding to, but
Oh yeah, I think it's Windows or Palmer. I think one of them has like bell bottom jeans, which is very 70s. It's not very 80s, but yeah, there's like a couple of outfit choices that are dated, but it's mostly just bearded dudes.
yeah.
I mean, this is John Carpenter, who thinks that Tom Atkins is like the ultimate manly man.
I mean, it works. Like, I know people who are like, "Oh yeah, I had such a crush on Tom Atkins in this movies." I'm like, "What?"
Whoa!
It
It wasn't
works.
for his face; it was for his ass.
Which is in
He
the
has
chat
that
right now.
famous ass.
His
No,
donkey.
that's the joke.
Explain.
Tell me the
comedy,
joke.
Austin.
I was. Yeah, well, Austin have to be funny first.
Okay.
It's called anti-comedy.
These sets are so cool. No pun intended.
Oh yeah, they are great. And this is where we're gonna get like the giant thing too.
Which I think looks awesome. I wish it was on screen longer. And there's a couple of obvious stop motion shots, but I don't care. It looks cool.
Yeah, well, I like stop motion too. So.
And fun fact,
By the way.
Wilford Brimley is not the thing in this scene. This is just what diabetes does to you.
No, I was gonna make that exact same statement. Yeah.
It gives you the strength to crush a man's skull.
Well, it's like when you're really low on sugar and you need more, you can like put your fingers into them to pull out their sugar.
Well, that's what triggered his rage earlier when he was raging in the room.
That's what 90s cartoon Morbius is. Like that's what his suction cups are. He just has diabetes.
He's diabetic.
Tom Atkins asked if Tom Atkins was in this movie, he could have saved the day. I mean, that's probably true.
It's true.
He didn't
That's
save
true.
the day in Halloween 3.
That is also true.
Yeah, he did. He led children dying. That's saving the day.
Then he would have let all these people die.
Who's to say that's not how you save? That would technically be saving the day because then the thing can't get out.
Not if he lets McCready die.
I hate to tell
All
you
you
this,
need-
Austin, but McCready's dead.
No, don't say
He's
that.
not dead.
No.
You don't say that.
Don't you say that. There are no
all you need
exits that way.
All you need to do to beat the thing is just force him to wear one of the silver shamrock masks.
I thought you were gonna say all you have to do to beat the thing is kill yourself.
Yeah, that.
No, it's even better than that. You just have to make him listen to the Silver Shamrock song.
Oh no!
Oh, fucking thank you, John. That's stuck in my head.
Yeah, there it
It's
is.
Halloween, Halloween, Halloween.
That was like the worst rendition
I know.
I've ever heard. You put it out of my head by doing that.
Damn it. I'll play it
Silver
after.
Shamrock.
I'll have to
Now,
play it in the bot after the stream.
This is one of my favorite effect shots in the movie. You don't expect the floor to just explode and like a freaking earthquake to come to Kurt Russell. It's so awesome.
It turns into Tremors for a second.
So, how do you guys feel about, not just as an effect, but for the big third act battle? I guess is this a good idea to have a giant monster, or does this feel a little too like, well, we got to make a giant action scene for the climax?
No, it
I
doesn't
think
go
it's
on
fine.
too
'Cause
long.
it's not really. Yeah, it's not even really an action sequence. But I think it works because the thing's desperate. It's doing like the last thing it can to stop him from blowing this place up.
That might be my favorite one-liner in the movie. Yeah, and fuck you too.
Fuck you too.
It's such a bad one-liner that it turns around and becomes awesome.
Yeah.
Which his son later recreates in Overlord, where he gets a also really shitty one-liner that becomes awesome.
I mean, that's just that whole movie, though. It's not good.
No, you're just wrong.
That movie needed to be like 10 times
I've never
schlockier.
seen it. I've never seen it.
This explosion is pretty awesome.
No, yeah, this looks great. Helps when you're actually burning down your set.
It's
So-
okay, we can use this.
So we should talk about the really stupid fan theory that Kurt Russell isn't holding.
One.
Well, the one I'm referring to is that he's not holding alcohol. He's actually holding a Molotov cocktail. And his test to Childs is like, oh, if he drinks this, I know it's the thing. And we literally see him about to drink it. Like,
He was
it's not
acting.
a Molotov. And that
This
theory...
would be a bad J&B commercial if that was a Molotov cocktail.
Exactly. And it makes no sense because the things are supposed to be like perfect duplicates with the memories of these people. Like, it would know what alcohol tastes like, or at least it would be revolted by the taste of gasoline. Like, that theory makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. That's
And-
stupid.
So this
Yeah,
is a
and
tiny little sound design thing, but I love how the crackling of the fire is like perfectly mixed in with them talking, and it just adds an atmosphere.
Yeah. And the music too.
Yep. Carpenter knows his way about atmosphere.
Yeah. And when Kurt Russell smiles or McCready smiles, just be like, ha, so he failed the test. He knows it's the thing. Like, shut up. Like, that's not the point.
Oh my god, you can't see his breath.
That thing is so dumb, Robert. When Blumhouse does the like soft reboot sequel, that
They
will be
will.
what happened.
They will, because somebody will read that online and go, oh, that's brilliant. Let's build on
And
that.
Kurt Russell will show up and he'll be like, "Yeah, I got him. Childs was actually the thing. I got him to drink gasoline, bro."
Oh no, they'll totally they're gonna do that.
They'll do the
and-
flashback where you see the scene.
So I don't support that fan theory or any of the fan theories, but I do find it interesting that you don't. At least so far, I haven't really noticed any like fog, like breath visible from Childs.
Oh, it's there.
It is there, yeah.
You can see it.
Okay.
It's just not as noticeable. I just saw it. Like, It's just not as noticeable as Kurt Russell's.
Yeah, Kurt Russell is like a chimney of smoke coming out.
Yeah.
Well, half of
He's
that
vaping.
is his breath, and half of that is John Carpenter smoking off camera.
Exactly. And some people have said it's a test because, like, earlier they said you can't share like food or water or whatever because you don't want to spread the infection if someone is the thing. So why would he just drink a bottle from? It's like it's because they're freezing to death. They don't care. Like
They're both gonna die.
assuming Childs is human, it's like, screw it, I'll drink some alcohol. Like, he's not thinking about that. And to me, the most interesting ending of this movie is that they're both human. Like, Childs
That's
could
what I
be
have.
the thing. Like, there's weight to that. But it's like, I think it's more interesting if they're both human. I don't need the movie to spell it out to me. The ambiguity is the point.
I think it adds a certain bit of interesting, like, tragedy. They won, but, like, at what cost? And that fits more in line, I think, with because Carpenter has kind of referred to help me out here, Austin. The
Apocalypse trilogy.
Yeah, Prince of Darkness, and is In the Mouth of Madness the third one?
Madness.
And it's kind of an apocalypse trilogy, and those all end in kind of similar ways. Whereas even if the protagonist wins, they kind of lose in the end, or just outright lose in the end.
Yeah, I've always seen this ending as the thing is defeated. They're both human, but I mean they're gonna freeze to death. Like it's just a grim.
I mean, there's no way out of that situation.
The
game when they fight Godzilla, the thing.
Yes. Although it's totally possible a piece of the thing survived and froze and will be found later. Have any of you guys seen the Blob remake?
If anything, more likely. Yeah.
Which Blob remake?
The Blob remake is awesome, and that has a great epilogue. That's like, oh no, humanity's doomed.
No, I mean,
that is a very cynical ending.
I'm not saying that I need a The Thing sequel, but just under the assumption that we are getting one, whether you like it or not, that's what I would do.
No, I reject your hypothesis.
I just reject your hypothesis.
Reject your hypothesis?
That's what I would do. Is just it survived out in the snow, like in hibernation. That it's not it's not amazing by any means, but I think it's the least damaging to the ending of this film's.
What they'll do is, like 40 years later or whatever, a new camp finds this wreckage and they're like, oh, what is this like bit of frozen blood? And then they bring it back to their camp, and then like 20 minutes into the movie, McCready will walk in and he'll be like, I've been walking from my camp for 40 years.
Tom Atkins ass says the Blob remake freaks me out.
It's very cool.
It's terrifying.
I like to fly this and the Blob. The Blob's probably my least favorite of the the three, sorry. But I like it a lot.
Well, so I'm with you there, Austin, even though I also like the Blob a lot. But it's kind of just telling, right? It's like these are all such quality movies. Something has to be in last place.
Yeah. Well, the Blob's also more like fun, like popcorny kind of, summer movie.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another one where that's the one where James Rolfe prefers the original, and I'm like, come on, man. Like, I get why the original has its fans, but it's not very good in my opinion.
No, I like the Blob, and it's got Amanda from Saw.
Like horrific child death. It's amazing.
Yeah, I much prefer the remake. And that sequence is so good. But the Blob is another one that feels like pointless to remake again. It's like we already have two versions that are so different, and if you're just gonna do stupid CG, like it's not worth it. Like you're not gonna top the '80s one, so just don't do it.
Okay, so Austin's gonna disagree with me here, but the only reason I disagree,
fuck you, John.
I really wanted to see what Rob Zombie's The Blob looks like.
Eddie Hicks screaming at each other for the first half, and then they all get eaten by the Blob. That's the movie.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna
I'd buy that for $1.
Blob.
What?
Someone's gonna skull fuck the Blob.
All right. Well, that was The Thing. Austin, as always, it was a pleasure to have you on. Hopefully, we can get you back on soonish.
But not the other two of you, apparently. That was very like Wizard of Oz. I'll miss you most of all, Scarecrow.
No, it's because you're only on once every like 3 or 4 months.
Oh, okay.
And these two are on more regularly. And then, of course, as always, my usual co-host, Torgo, and new, possibly regular co-host, Robert. You know, we appreciate having you guys on, and we'll be definitely be doing regular stuff. Well, this is only his third show.
You most of all, Scarecrow.
Oh my fucking god! He's only done 3 shows with us, so I don't know what our schedule looks like. You know, things might come up.
I know.
Fuck you, Austin. But yeah, that movie is a masterpiece. Maybe we'll do like a re-review of that one day with the full panel. But I really enjoyed that. And does anybody have
to do? We're gonna have to do an Exorcist 2 commentary. That'll be your next video.
We will. We do have to do that, but I do want to do a review next time we get together. I will not be around next Friday, so there will be no stream next Friday, but perhaps the Friday after. We'll either get back to Shudder Shuffle, or the 3 of us, if we're all 3 available, we'll get together and figure out what we're going to do. And Austin, of course, you're always welcome to join. I know you're busier than the average Canadian.
Okay.
Smarter than the average.
I went from Scarecrow to Yogi Bear.
I gotta keep you guessing. But yeah, does anybody have anything to say before we stop the stream?
I can't see Noah's breath.
Noah's the thing.
Noah, drink this. It's not gasoline.
I got it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all